Hey there everyone, it's about bloody time. I created another video and this time it's not a preview. This is a video that's going to cover the changes and new features within 1080, and I'm actually planning on releasing that build in the next couple of days. It's in the hands of a couple of folks, and I just want them to play around with it for a little bit, and once I get the all clear, I'll release it. Okay, so in the meantime, let's get started and open up the theme creator. Now some of this I've already covered, so I won't go into great detail. I have let's see, added help about. So in addition to showing you the version of the build, it shows you the DLLs that this build is expecting to use, and all the individuals on the forum that have contributed in some shape or form with the either bugs or feature requests, you name it. They're all listed here. Okay. Now, what is important in this build, or besides the main features, is I spent a great deal of time tweaking the time it takes to load a view and trigger all the animations and all this kind of good stuff. So anyway, the net effect is that first of all, the app loads a lot faster than before, and it takes you straight into an available view a lot faster than before. Resizing the window takes far less time to perform a reload. So yeah, there's a lot of performance improvements in this app overall. And of course that's all under the covers. Visually, I have the toolbar up here. I think I covered that in the previous video, but basically enable audio, disable audio, and then we have 3 levels of aspect ratio. We're on stretch, 16:9, 4:3, and then this is where we can modify our views, or we can toggle and switch into editing our custom images. All right. So where shall I start? Well, I did go into aspect ratio, so we're in stretch. Let me pick this view, horizontal wheel 2, and 16:9 doesn't mean anything on this particular computer because the native desktop resolution is 16:9. So if I change it to 4:3, here we are in 4:3. I hit edit, and the load time, or the time it takes to open the view now is much improved. All right, so now here we are in 4:3, and as you can see, I'm kind of locked into this area. If I don't know, add a rectangle, I guess, and move it around. See, I'm kind of restricted or limited to this space, this canvas space. All right, so that's 4:3, and I can put it back into stretch. Let's see. Video preview. Oh, let me go into text view real quick. Either of these, either filter or game. I've altered the text lists. I didn't realize this, but I was calculating the scaling incorrectly, and it was different to that of the editor. So when you published, it looked different to the editor. I've changed the code so it's in sync. So now when you have a look at the text lists within the editor and you publish, it'll be identical, okay? And that is, and that works in any aspect ratio as well, okay? So if you're editing in 4:3, for example, and you expect the final published view to look like this, it will. All right, let me put it back in the stretch. Let's see, element list. We'll go into that in a second. There's a couple of new features. I just want to cover some of the little subtle fixes and changes before I really kind of get into it. First list item. Animation true rate. Okay, you know what? I'm just going to go straight into the big features. So let's see, which one shall I tackle first? I went into visibility conditioning on a prior video, and I applied visibility conditioning to these labels and metadata fields here on the left and right. And when switching to arcade, where the metadata fields are non-existent, the total games and the total game count was just sitting out here on the left-hand side with all the labels and no data underneath. All right, so what I did, I added visibility conditioning to say don't show total games over here, and I added a duplicate total games label and total games count down here, and said if there's nothing to show on the left and right, show the total game and total game count down below the video. All right, so that's what I did in my previous video. However, I've changed visibility conditioning since then. Obviously, that was a long time ago. So so let's do something a little different. So we'll go into a games view this time, and as you can see in arcade, I have no image on the left-hand side, and it looks kind of barren. It looks very bare compared to that of, let's say, I don't know, Neo Geo, for example. I'm just picking anything, where it will show the box art. Okay, so what I would like to do in the case of no box art being displayed, I want to show a different image. And because we were talking about arcade, let's focus on showing an arcade cabinet in place of box art, which we know it won't have box art. So what we'll do, I'm going to just simply right click on box art. I'm going to copy, right click, paste, and I'm going to call this arcade cabinet. And I want to make sure the location is exactly the same as the box art where it's currently defined. So just simply paste layout. So now I have two images, exactly the same location and dimensions, and with the same shadow effect. Okay. Highlighting or selecting arcade cabinet, scroll down through the properties, and instead of game box front, which, because I copied the original properties, I want to select arcade cabinet, and here it is. All right, and again, it's it's inherited all the animation and shadow effects from box art when I did the copy. Okay, so that's why you saw it fade in. And I'll cover this new visual style in a few minutes, but let me just define this. So what I want to do, I essentially want to attempt to display an arcade cabinet if the image file exists. If it doesn't, then I want to my second priority would be to show box art. Okay, so arcade cabinet is the first priority. So what we can do here, we just scroll up through the properties and we go to visibility, okay, and we go to conditions. So the arcade cabinet is visible unless a condition below is met. Well, what we're going to do, we're going to say it's collapsed or hidden. I'm going to say collapsed. It will only be visible if arcade cabinet file exists is yes. Meaning I successfully found an arcade cabinet image for the selected game. And when I do, I want this image to be visible. Now, box art. And I've added a little shortcut on here. You can just right click and select visibility. Was that a spelling mistake? No. Okay. Even with my glasses, I can't tell. All right. So box art is collapsed, and it's only visible when arcade cabinet visibility is collapsed. So if arcade cabinet has got nothing to show, then it's collapsed. And if it's collapsed, I want to show box art. All right? So that's how that works. It's one or the other. And as you can see up here, box art as animation here, and arcade cabinet has animation, and the V, which is new to this release or this build, indicates that this element has visibility conditions. All right, so now you can clearly see if there's kind of special properties assigned to your UI elements. And of course, while we're here, let's talk about the new UI that I've done for this section of this panel, this window. And so if I select this group, for example, you know, it works pretty much the same way as before. Okay, you can move stuff around, but this time you get visual cues as to where you are intending to drop an item, in this case a group. Okay, so if I drop it between main and lower, there you go, between main and lower. If I drop the group below lower, there it is. All right, put it right at the top above details, here it is. If I wish to move game wheel index to details, you can clearly see the group that I'm planning on moving it to at the highest level, or I can say I want it after text 7, or maybe I want it, you know, before text 7. Okay, you get the idea. So visual cues as to you know, where you're planning or where you're intending to drop your elements or groups in this list. I've made the icons on the left hand side, the UI element types stand out just a little bit, just by adding a little bit of a background color, just so it doesn't all blend in. And as I covered already, the icon, the animate icon used to be on the far left hand side, but then that was obscuring the element type icon. And quite frankly, I like everything kind of lined up like buttons and right aligned here. So let's cover some new features in here. And as you can see, we have a padlock and we have an eyeball at the group level, and obviously the individual items within the group. Okay, and they're all on. So it says hide all elements, editor only. So if I click that, everything within that group disappears. what it's actually done is removed all those UI elements from the code, and therefore they've gone from the screen. Now, as the tooltip says, it's only for the editor. So if you've got an awful lot of items on screen that have a lot of fade in, fade out, a lot of rotation, animations defined, and it's really slowing down your machine as you're building up your view, what you can do here, you can just simply hide an entire group, or you can go into individual items and just click them off, or click them on, whatever you want to do, and that will hopefully speed things up for you. Now, if you inadvertently, if you unchecked and you save, it's okay. Don't worry about that. If you publish, it still publishes with everything intact. It's only when you load up the editor, those items are not going to display on screen. Okay. And like I said, they are physically not displayed. They're not. The code has not been generated for those UI elements, so I can click anywhere I want on these screens and they're not detected. Okay. So let me go in and re-enable, so everything comes back, and then let me click on the padlock this time, and what you can see now is any UI element within this group is now, or all UI elements within this group are now locked, and for those locked items, it's almost as though they're not basically, wherever you click, they're not clickable, they're not selectable on screen. You can select them here in the panel, you can see the properties, but they're protected. Okay, so the properties are locked down. You can't use the cursor keys to move objects around. You can right click on an element within the panel, or I thought you could. Maybe you can't. Maybe I've disabled that, and rightly so, because it is locked. So you can't move by drag and drop, you can't right click to do whatever. It's fully locked down. All right. And again, that's at the group level, but if you want, you can lock down a couple of UI elements, allowing these to be, freely moved around wherever you want. It's just that you can't touch these. See, drag won't work. All right. So it's useful, and obviously, if you've used Photoshop, some of these features are not alien to you at all. All right. And for some of the new users out there, I just want to kind of drive this information home. This list acts as a Z-order list, okay? So the higher up the list you go, it doesn't even matter what the name of the group is. The higher up the list you go, the closer you are to the foreground. The lower on the list, the further into the background the element is. And as you can see here, the lowest UI element I have in my list is background, and of course, anything beyond that. So for example, if I could take details and move it below background, and in essence what that's done is the UI elements are there, it's just that background image is obscuring all those UI elements. All right, and what I could do to prove my point, I could just simply change the opacity of the background image, and there they are. They're behind the background image. So this is your Z-order level, okay? So top of the list, closer to the foreground, bottom of the list, further into the background, all right? And so the whole dragging around up and down, it does serve a purpose. It is a Z order. All right. I think I've covered most of the features on here. I'm very, very happy with how this has turned out. It took quite a bit of time for me to rewrite, and it was a rewrite, but it was also necessary based on the next set of activities I've got planned for version 1090 to allow container type elements to be added to the screen. And I don't think you can see it here on the video, but I have a double chevron here to indicate that, you know, this element, whether or not this element has items. Yeah, this element has no content, so that's because this particular element is not a container type, and those are going to be added in the next build. And this is there so that when you do define container type elements, this will light up, and that will allow you to add elements within that container type and move them around within that container, and just as you do on the full screen, but within a container you'll be limited to the size of the container itself. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. But anyway, this was necessary to put this together. There were a lot of bugs. There were a couple of Z order bugs. It was altering the code and changing the Z order of some of your UI elements sometimes, and then, you know, visually it didn't allow me to add the drag and drop visual cues, and just the whole alignment of the little icons to indicate, do I have animation, do I have visibility conditioning. It was very tough to kind of put all that code into the existing version. So I said, you know what, it'll be a lot faster and a lot easier and cleaner if you know, using everything I've learned in the past, you know, almost 2 years, and essentially rewrite this control at the top of the screen here. So anyway, I was very, very happy with it. I did indicate in one of my previous videos that this panel now, or this window, is a true window. So, you know, you can minimize, maximize, but if you have more than one monitor, you can drag this off of the primary and move it onto a different monitor so that you can use your primary monitor as your true editing space for your view, and not being obscured by this thing. All right. Obviously, I can't demonstrate that. I'm streaming from my primary monitor, so you'll just have to take my word for it. But yeah, that was a much needed change, and a lot of benefits came out of making these changes to this panel alone. So yeah, it's very cool. I'm very happy. All right, so I think I've covered enough on here. I've covered enough on visibility. So I have these two UI elements over here. They will essentially flip-flop. If one has an image, the other one is hidden. If otherwise, this one will show when this one doesn't show. All right, so I'm going to hit save. And we're in arcade, and before this wasn't showing anything. So now we see the Altered Beast arcade cabinet. If I click Battle Zone, we have a Battle Zone. Don't have a video though. Let me see, do I have Centipede? I do have Centipede. Let's Chase HQ. Yep. So yeah, I've got some arcade cabinets. Yeah, some of the images are not very good. I don't do a very good job at cleaning up my content. But yeah, no, I mean, hey, it's better than a blank space. And that was a very simple, you know, two priorities. If this, show this, otherwise show this. And you can make the visibility conditioning as complex as you need to. And I'll probably do another video at a later date to go into a very complex series of images, and I'll be using a combination of images from Launchbox plus user-defined images, fallback images, what you consider default images, and some of this is controlled via metadata in Launchbox, and if you've used custom field values as well. So I don't really want to kind of go over that in this video, because first of all, I want to build a script of this is what I'm trying to achieve, and I want to kind of play it out and test it out for myself before just jumping into a video and trying to hack something together willy-nilly. Plus I want some, you know, default images and stuff in place. So later date for that. That was visibility conditioning, and I think what I'll do right now is just simply go in and publish. And this will take a bit of time, because I I have over 5,000 custom images that it's now transferring from my project folder to the BigBox themes folder. And I'm just checking my list, see what I can go over. All right, so close this, open BigBox. And let me lower the volume. And let's see, we'll go into plain and simple. Here we are, platforms, and it was, actually it doesn't really matter. We'll go into this one, and because we are in Capcom, I actually have arcade images or arcade cabinet images here, so it will show them. And in this case, it didn't have one for this, and it's showing the box cover, so that's pretty cool. Well, let's go to arcade, or I know I got another one. It's, you know what, I've never tried Model 3. Oh, okay, yeah. Oh, nice. Some of these are pretty cool. Oh, all right. Let's try light gun games. Yeah, they're not very. Except for that one. That one's pretty cool. Time Crisis. Let's go to arcade. Yep. It's looking good, except for the images. I need to go through and remove the ones that I don't wish to use. I like the ones with the transparent backgrounds like that. I think that looks really cool. Yeah, yeah, it looks good. I mean, it just fills up the space, and you know, it's more relevant showing an arcade cab for an arcade game as opposed to showing box cover. Yeah, that looks great. Okay, so that was visibility conditioning and using it for images. So let's go back into the theme creator. It feels like I'm jipping you now. I know there were a ton of changes I put into this, and there were an awful lot of bugs that came with it, and it took a lot longer to get this build ready than I had anticipated. But then again, I wasn't anticipating in allowing you to edit in different aspect ratios, and obviously that's something that I've made available for this build. So that was, it initially started off as something very simple, or what I thought was simple, and I thought the code changes were very simple, and on the surface everything appeared to be working correctly. But then once I was getting down to wrapping things up, and I was doing a series of tests, going through a standard list of things that I normally do, copy paste and whatnot, it was failing left and right. So, and the results were very messy. So it's taken a good couple of weeks just to clean all that up. So let's see. A couple of changes you might like. Let's see. If I add an image real quick, I don't really want to show anything, but if you're using custom fields, and I've got custom fields here, so I can see what kind of values I have for this. So altered beast is cool and some value. Okay, so those are two different values I've got for this field. You can say basically using this field value, which would have been this and this, these would be the PNG images it would be looking for if you were to say, hey, I want to show an image based on this value. Well, if you're going to do that, then you need these images in place, and you would say, well, I want to get those images from this particular folder, for example, or this one, and it would show it. Well, that's for images, but the same is true now for let's see, animated GIF. Let's see. You can say that. You can say this one. Examine values, and it's the same as before, but this time it's looking for these values with an extension of GIF, and then all you would need to do is obviously one, make sure those GIFs exist, and then two, select the appropriate folder from which from wherever you put them in, and it will, whenever it encounters those field values, it will load that image file. And then the last one is user-defined video, and this too will now use custom fields. All right, so it will actually use MP4. And again, you would just say, hey, you know, these user-defined videos are housed in, I don't know, this particular folder, and that's essentially it. So, you know, it works the same way as image and GIF. Now, the cool thing is you could say visibility conditioning on the video. I could say it's collapsed unless make it visible when make it visible when animated GIF is collapsed, but then maybe I want a second one. So I've got another, what was it? I think it was image 8. And if image 8 file exists is no. And actually it looks like I need to add this property, file exists, to the GIF. So I could do the same thing. So I could say if animated GIF 1 file exists is no, and image 8 file exists is no, then I want my user-defined video visible. All right. So otherwise it will be collapsed. All right. So multiple conditions. So that's an ANDed condition. If you want to go down that path, like I said, you can make it as complicated as you desire. But I'll make a note of this, and when I release the build, I'll make damn sure that this file exists property is a valid property for animated GIF. And let me just double check something here. So user-defined video, did I make that field available? User-defined video. Yeah, I did. I just forgot to add it to animated GIF. Okay, so I'll do that so at least is consistent. Yeah. All right. All right, I'm going to discard. I don't really want to keep that stuff in my view. Let's see. Yeah, just a couple of tweaks. Let me see. Pick anything with animation and double click. Up here I've added the when to trigger, so you can specify it here, or you can specify it here in either place. So it's especially useful when you hit new. It defaults to immediately. You can set it right here and then start defining your animation sequence with all its properties. You can do that right here, instead of defining them, coming back here and then forgetting to set the trigger. All right, so at least you can do it in either place now. Let's see. I think that's pretty much it from a visual perspective. Platform and playlist names are scrubbed. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it from a visual perspective. I mean, an awful lot went in to that, but also a lot of changes were made to accelerate the editor and accelerate the preview, and obviously the main aim is to ensure that what you see here in the editor and the preview with all the animations running as you're selecting through your list, it's supposed to emulate what you will get to see when you publish and run it via BigBox. So it was a great deal of work, And I think you'll be very happy with it. I think you'll be very pleased with it. Now, a lot of other fixes have been put in place. I'll go through the list. I will post the list, obviously, in the comments. But some of the triggering of the animations themselves were kind of slightly off compared to BigBox, and I painstakingly had BigBox up and had had the editor up on another session, and I was comparing the two, making sure that the timings were identical. The initial load and display of the selected view is a lot smoother. Well, that's really a byproduct of performing the whole load and display a lot faster in a single pass. I was doing it in multiple passes before, and that's all changed now. So we end up with a much faster from time to loading the requested view to building the code real time and then presenting the XAML on screen. It's a lot smoother to go through all those processes now. Went through some. Really, it was some of the startup issues that people were experiencing with some of their XML files that they have in Launchbox. I made some assumptions that certain fields will always be in these XML files. That's not true. So I had to include a lot of error trapping to say, hey, if the field's not there, it's not there. So just keep on moving. Don't crap out. Let's see. Playlist names, they now appear as defined in the XML instead of using the XML file name. Yep. All published text lists, font size are incorrectly covered. Text lists I covered. Custom image rendering. Names are scrubbed and replace invalid characters in a file name for custom images are now replaced with an underscore. Yeah, that's pretty much it. So there were a lot of error trapping behind the scenes, a lot of performance changes under the covers, some UI controls being rewritten, and then aspect ratio, not only changing the aspect ratio for preview in this window, but providing you the ability to edit within that selected aspect ratio as well. So, there's some great features in this build, and like I said, it really kind of nicely kind of segues and allows me to hopefully quickly kind of build on top of this version fairly quickly to provide the container elements. So yeah, I'm really excited about that. All right, well, I won't keep you. That's essentially 1080 in a nutshell. Sorry it's taken so long to get this version out. It's been a number of months now, but it was just in poor shape over the past couple of weeks, and I really didn't have the heart or the energy to put another preview video out because things were just not working, or at least I knew things were not working, and I didn't really want to kind of get into it. So anyway, it's in much better shape now. I'll fix that one property for visibility conditioning for animated GIFs, so you can actually get to the file exists property. But that's essentially it, and like I said, I'll release it in the next couple of days, or in the next few days, once I get the green light from a couple of individuals that are messing around with this build right now, and then see what you guys think of it. But like I said, it will fix some of the blatant issues that you guys experience with 1079. And again, I can only apologize that it's taken this long to remediate and fix those known issues. All right, so a couple of days, you'll have this build. Let me know what you think when you get it, and I'll be curious as to what you're able to come up with in your themes using visibility conditioning. I've seen it used in a rather unique way in a theme that Farron put together last week. He hasn't shared that publicly, and I'm not going to talk about it, but I guess when he's ready to share that, I think you'll be quite impressed, and maybe that will give you some ideas as to how you could leverage the same kind of technique or use visibility conditioning within your themes. All right. So anyway, until then, take care, be safe, and enjoy when you get to see this later on in the week.